Hey everyone, and welcome back to Mr. Daily Speak English. We're really happy to see you here again today. I'm David.
And I'm Emily. It's great to be here. How are you feeling today, David?
I'm doing great, Emily, and I'm very excited about today's topic. I think many of our listeners are really interested in this one.
Absolutely. Today, we're going to talk about something very important for many English learners: how to get a high score on the IELTS exam.
That's right. The IELTS, the International English Language Testing System, is a test that many people need to take for different reasons, such as studying abroad, working in an English-speaking country, or even immigrating to another country.
Exactly. And getting a good score on the IELTS can really open many doors in your life. So today, we want to share some helpful tips and strategies that can make your IELTS preparation easier and more effective.
Before we start, if you find this lesson useful, please subscribe to our channel. Give this video a like and share it with your friends who are also preparing for the IELTS exam. Your support really helps us continue creating lessons for you.
Okay, so let's start with the basics. What exactly is the IELTS, David?
Well, Emily, as you mentioned, IELTS stands for the International English Language Testing System. It is a standardized English exam that measures the language skills of non-native speakers. The test checks four main skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking.
That's right. And there are two main types of IELTS tests: the academic test and the general training test. The academic test is usually for people who want to study at a university or another higher education institution. The general training test is mostly for people who want to work, live, or immigrate to an English-speaking country.
It's very important to know which IELTS version you need to take because the reading and writing sections are different in the academic and general training tests. However, the listening and speaking sections are the same in both versions.
So, how is the IELTS test structured? Can you give us a short overview of each section?
Sure, let's start with the listening section. The listening test has four parts, and you will listen to recordings of native English speakers. You may hear conversations, monologues, and different real-life situations. After listening, you answer questions about what you heard.
There are around 40 questions in total, and the listening part takes about 30 minutes, plus 10 more minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet.
It can be challenging because you hear each recording only once, so it's very important to listen carefully and take notes if that helps you. Definitely. And the question types in the listening section can be quite different. You may see multiple choice questions, fill in the blank tasks, matching exercises, and more. Now let's move on to the reading section. For the academic IELTS, you read three long texts, usually taken from academic journals, books, or magazines. For the general training test, the texts are shorter and come from everyday materials, such as advertisements, notices, company handbooks, and newspapers.
Right, and in both versions of the test, you must answer 40 questions in 60 minutes. Just like in listening, the reading questions also include different task types. For example, multiple choice questions, true, false, not given, matching headings, and sentence completion.
Time management is really important in the reading section. You need to read efficiently, understand the main ideas, and also notice important details in the text.
Absolutely. Next, we have the writing section, and this is where the academic and general training tests are the most different. In the academic writing test, there are two tasks. Task 1 usually asks you to describe visual information, such as a graph, chart, table, or diagram, using your own words. You must write at least 150 words in about 20 minutes.
Task 2 is an essay where you discuss a topic, give your opinion, and support it with arguments and examples. You must write at least 250 words in about 40 minutes.
And for the general training version of the test, task 1 is usually writing a letter in response to a given situation. You may need to ask for information, explain a situation, or make a complaint. Here as well, you must write at least 150 words in about 20 minutes.
Task 2 in general training is also an essay on a general topic where you present your opinion and support it with reasons and examples. Again, you need to write at least 250 words in about 40 minutes.
It is very important to pay attention to the word limit and time limit for each writing task. Also, remember to write clearly and organize your ideas logically. Now let's talk about the speaking section. The speaking test is a face-to-face interview with an examiner, and it usually takes about 11 to 14 minutes. It has 3 parts.
Yes, part 1 is like a short introduction. The examiner asks general questions about you, your hobbies, daily life, work, or studies. This part usually takes about 4 to 5 minutes. Part 2 is called the cue card or topic card. You receive a card with a topic, you have 1 minute to prepare, and then you speak for about 1 to 2 minutes. After that, the examiner may ask 1 or 2 follow-up questions.
Part 3 is a deeper discussion related to the same topic from Part 2. Here, the examiner asks more complex and analytical questions, and this part lasts about 4 to 5 minutes. The speaking test is mainly about communicating clearly and fluently. It is important to speak clearly, use a good range of vocabulary and grammar, and answer the questions fully.
So that was an overview of the IELTS test. Now let's talk about how to get a high score. What are some general tips that can help in all sections of the exam? Well, the first and most important thing is practice, practice, practice. The more familiar you are with the format of the test and the types of questions, the more confident you will feel on test day.
Absolutely. There are many resources available online and in books that offer practice tests and exercises. It's a great idea to complete practice tests under timed conditions so that you can simulate the real exam environment.
Another very important tip is to improve your overall English skills, not just exam techniques. This means expanding your vocabulary, improving your grammar, and working on your pronunciation.
Yes, and try to use English as much as possible in your daily life. Watch English movies and TV shows, listen to English podcasts and music, read English books and articles, and try to speak English with friends or language partners.
That's excellent advice. When you practice, it is also helpful to identify your weaknesses and focus on improving those areas. For example, if listening is your weak point, you should spend more time doing listening exercises and training your ear for English.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to ask for feedback. If you have a teacher or a language partner, ask them to listen to your speaking or read your writing and give you constructive suggestions for improvement.
Okay, now let's go deeper and talk about specific strategies for each section of the IELTS exam. Let's start with the listening section. What are some useful tips for getting a high score here? For listening, it is very important to read the questions before the recording starts. This helps you understand what information you need to listen for.
That's a great tip because it helps you focus your attention on the most important details. Also, pay attention to key words in the questions. These words can help you identify which part of the recording contains the answer. And don't try to understand every single word. Sometimes you can get the answer just by understanding the main idea or key phrases.
Another thing to remember is that IELTS listening often includes distractors. The speakers may mention information that sounds like the answer, but is actually incorrect. So you must listen carefully to the full context.
It is also very helpful to practice listening to different accents, British, American, Australian, and others. In the test, you may hear a variety of English accents, so it is good to be familiar with them. And finally, if you miss an answer, don't panic and don't stop listening. Just move on to the next question. Otherwise, you may miss even more answers.
Those are all excellent tips for the listening section. Now, let's move on to the reading section. How can our listeners improve their reading score? For reading, time management is absolutely essential. You have 60 minutes to answer 40 questions based on 3 long texts in the academic test or several shorter texts in the general training version.
It's a good idea to quickly skim each text first to get a general understanding before you start answering questions. Skimming helps you understand the main idea of the passage. Then, when you look at the questions, you can go back and scan the text for specific information. Scanning means looking for keywords or phrases related to the question.
It's also important to understand the different reading skills that are tested in IELTS. These include understanding main ideas, finding specific details, recognizing implied meaning, understanding the writer's opinion and attitude, and following how an argument develops through the text.
So, practicing these different skills is very important. You can do exercises that help you identify the main idea, find key information, or make logical inferences. Another common challenge in reading is vocabulary. Sometimes the texts include words that may be unfamiliar.
While you don't need to understand every single word, having a wide vocabulary will definitely help you. Try to learn new words regularly and pay attention to how they are used in real contexts. If you see a new word during the test, try to guess its meaning from the sentence or paragraph instead of stopping or panicking.
And just like in the listening section, you also need to be careful with true, false, not given questions. Not given means that the information is not mentioned in the text, even if it seems logical or possible in real life. So never use your own knowledge, only the information in the passage.
Another useful tip is to practice reading different types of texts depending on which IELTS version you are preparing for. If you are taking the academic test, read articles from journals, books, and research-based materials. If you are taking the general training test, practice reading everyday texts such as emails, notices, letters, and workplace documents. This helps you get familiar with the style, tone, and vocabulary used in the exam.
Those are all very helpful strategies for the reading section. Now, let's move on to one of the most challenging parts for many students, the writing section. What advice can help learners get a higher score in writing?
In the writing section, it is extremely important to understand the task requirements. Make sure you know exactly what the question is asking you to do and who you are writing for, especially in general training letters.
Yes, and before you start writing, take a few minutes to plan your answer. Brainstorm some ideas, organize them logically, and think about how to connect your ideas in clear paragraphs. Good planning helps you write a structured and coherent response.
For task 1, whether you are describing a visual in the academic test or writing a letter in the general training test, make sure you include all the key points from the task prompt and meet the word count requirement. In the academic test, when describing a graph or chart, focus on the main trends and the most important data, not every tiny detail. In the general training test, when writing a letter, use the correct tone, formal or informal, and make sure you include all the necessary information.
For task 2, the essay, it is very important to write a clear thesis statement in your introduction. Then, in the body paragraphs, support your opinion with strong arguments and relevant examples. Make sure your essay has a logical structure and that your ideas are connected smoothly.
Also, pay close attention to your grammar and vocabulary. Try to show a range of grammar structures and a good variety of vocabulary, but accuracy is more important than complexity. Don't use very advanced words if you are not sure you are using them correctly.
Time management is another key factor in the writing section. Spend the recommended time on each task and always leave a few minutes at the end to review your writing, check for mistakes, and make small corrections. Another useful tip is to practice writing different essay types and report formats for academic task 1, or different letter styles for general training task 1. This helps you become comfortable with different writing styles and structures.
And finally, if possible, try to get feedback on your writing. A teacher, tutor, or someone with strong English skills can help you see your mistakes, identify weak areas, and show you how to improve.
Those are all great tips for the writing section. Now let's talk about the speaking section, which many learners feel nervous about. What strategies can help students perform better in the speaking interview?
In the speaking section, fluency and coherence are very important. Try to speak smoothly and connect your ideas in a natural, logical way. Don't worry too much about small grammar mistakes, as long as your meaning is clear and easy to understand.
Yes, and try to speak at a natural pace. Don't speak too fast and don't speak too slowly. Also, try to use a good range of vocabulary and grammar structures. Show the examiner that you can express your ideas in different ways.
In Part 1, when you are asked simple questions about your life, hobbies, work, or studies, try not to give very short, one-word answers. Instead, add a little detail, explain your ideas, and extend your answers.
For Part 2, the cue card, make sure you use the 1 minute of preparation time wisely. Write down a few short notes or key ideas that you want to talk about. Then, when you speak for 1 to 2 minutes, try to cover all the points written on the card.
And in Part 3, the discussion section, try to answer the questions fully and give reasons, examples, and explanations for your opinions. This part of the test is your chance to show that you can discuss more complex and abstract topics.
It's also important to listen carefully to the examiner's questions and make sure you really understand them. If you're not sure, it's perfectly okay to ask the examiner to repeat or clarify the question.
Maintain good eye contact, sit confidently, and try to sound relaxed and engaged in the conversation. A positive and friendly attitude can really help your overall impression.
And, just like in other sections, practice is the key to success. Try to practice speaking English as much as possible, especially in real conversations. You can practice with friends, language partners, or even record yourself speaking and listen back to find areas for improvement.
Those are all fantastic tips for the speaking section. So, to summarize, getting a high score on the IELTS exam requires strong preparation, consistent practice, and a clear understanding of the test format and the skills being assessed.
Yes, and remember, it's not only about knowing English, but also about knowing how to use your English skills effectively in the context of the test. So make sure you learn the structure of each section, practice different question types, and continue improving your overall English proficiency.
And don't feel discouraged if you don't see results immediately. Learning a language and preparing for an exam takes time, effort, and patience. Just keep practicing, stay motivated, and believe in yourself. Every bit of effort you put into practice will help you improve.
To all our listeners who are preparing for IELTS, we truly hope these tips have been helpful. Stay positive, work hard, and remember, you can do it.
And before we wrap up, if you found this episode helpful, don't forget to subscribe to Mr. Daily Speak English, give us a like, and share this episode with friends who are preparing for the IELTS exam.
We'd also love to hear from you. In the comments, tell us your IELTS goals, your study experience, or any questions you'd like us to talk about in future episodes. Thank you so much for listening today. See you next time, and good luck with your IELTS preparation. I'm Emily.
And I'm David.